Top of the Props is brought to you by Barkingham Palace Dog Grooming, 1/10 Hollyley Road, Lemire. Find them on Facebook. Barkingham Palace Dog Grooming Macarthur, where every pup's a king or queen. And GameView. GameView is a statistical application that allows you to track, analyse and improve your team's and players' performance by capturing team and individual player statistics. Find out more, gameview.com.au. So we are now into episode 14 of Top of the Props. And a gentleman we have on tonight, and I just said to him offline as well, he's been very patient with me as I chased him around the internet trying to get his phone number and get him on the show. He's a man who played over 250 first-grade games, a Kangaroo and a Blues prop, a premiership winner at both the Bulldogs and the Panthers, and he's also a Clive Churchill Medal winner. It's Mr. Paul Dunn. Thanks for being with us on Top of the Props, Paul.
My pleasure, Curtis. Thanks for having me.
Paul, I just want to start with a couple of things off the cuff, and I usually throw a few curveballs out to start with. This one, though, in my intrepid investigations to do this interview, Paul, the first one was, from what I can see online, we share the same birthday, 7th of August.
Yep,
so
that's correct.
So
you're a smart guy too.
Yes, but also I'm a Leo, and I sometimes get myself in trouble. Have you found that throughout your career that being? Do you believe in any of that stuff, the star signs and all that
really.
crap?
No.
Nah, fair enough. Fair enough. The other one I've got is from a colleague of mine who we commentate the New South Wales Cup with. His name's Cam Hickson, and he's a Roosters fan as well. But he wanted me to ask you a question about a lady that you may or may not have worked with yonks ago at Boral called he calls her Auntie Maud. And she was at Boral for 15 years, and she was a Roosters tragic. Can you remember Maud from Boral? I'll put you on the spot now, because if you say no, you're gonna look like a bugger.
Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. Well, there you go, Cam. You got your question in, mate. I said, listen, because I thought he was stitching me up. So I said, Cam, can you tell me? Is this just can I have some information on it? And he said, I'm not really sure what Paul did there, but I'm pretty sure he worked there. So thank you, Cam. It's a great start to the podcast.
I did. I worked in the Boral Gas in the accounting area.
Okay. All right. So he's halfway home, but unfortunately we don't remember old Auntie Hickson. So sorry, Cam. We'll move on. So, Paul, am I right in saying, so you're born in central west New South Wales, up Orange Way?
In Molong, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it's 21 miles from Orange, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And it's a beautiful spot up there too, may I just say. But you didn't come down to Sydney till 19, is that right?
Yeah, I was 19 and a half.
So,
in 1983.
Yep, so apparently you played, and correct me if I'm wrong here, so you can tell me how old you were and what position you played, but how much memory have you got of playing in the 1981 Group 10 Grand Final for Railway up there for Bathurst?
Yeah, there's under 18 Grand Final, and I'd lived in Orange till I was 13 and went to De La Salle. So the kids we were playing in the under 18 Grand Final, and most of the kids I went to school with up till I was 13. And the bastards beat us. I think it was 17-14, something like that. It was 5 tries to 4, and we only kicked 1 goal each.
In a grand final?
In a grand final.
Yeah.
And I scored 2 tries and we still lost, so it was pretty pissed off.
Well, I was going to say that, and this is the last thing I looked up, and I was just sitting around, poking around on the computer before I gave you a call. And I'm a little bit younger, so I was born in 86, but that's not to say I'm not a huge rugby league nut myself. So I quickly jumped on YouTube, and I searched Paul Dunn highlights, and there's 4 tries, 4 of your individual tries on YouTube. Speaking of meat pies,
4 out of the 9.
No, but the thing I noticed about, well, all 4 of them was your work in support off the ball to get there before someone else. But the lines you ran for 3 of those 4 tries, was that something? Did you pick up in the bush, or was that something that came in your game later? The fact that you had all this skill at the line and all the rest, but you could also run a line wider of the ruck as well, which wasn't always the way for a front rower in the 80s, was it?
No, but when I first came down, I probably played half my career in the second row and half in the front row. It's sort of 50-50. And then as I got older and slowed down even more, because I was never the quickest bloke, I then got stuck in the front row the whole time.
And the fourth try, and I wanted to hold off on this one because this.
Which one was the fourth try?
No, I'm about to get to it now, and you can look it up later if you like, Paul. But this is top of the props. This is Hall of Fame stuff. So if you search round 21, 1988 versus St. George, it's a Tunks chip with Paul Dunn following through and dives on the bickies ahead of the wingers and the centres and everyone else. Can you remember that try against the Dragons? Because I'm sure Tunks did a little bit of kicking in his time.
But, Tunksy thought he was a genius kicker. He wasn't. He wasn't really, but he thought he was.
But, can you remember that try against the Dragons?
No, it's unusual because I remember most of the rest of them.
Well, it's right there on YouTube if you want to have a look at it. Round 21, 1988 versus the Dragons. It's a beautiful try because, and again, going back to what I said before, so we spoke about your line running, but what we didn't really go into there, particularly with the fourth try to go on with the other ones on YouTube, is your support play and you scrambled to get there. So was that always something you had in your game, that you were hungrier to always get the ball no matter where it was on the field?
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, we had this brother who taught us in Orange, or he coached us in Orange. I went to a De La Salle school, and his big thing was if the ball's on the ground, you dive on it. And even when I coached my son's team from like under 8s and 9s and that was one thing I always drilled into them. And there's a funny story. One week, one kid's gone away with his brother because his brother was swimming and his parents took him away. And so he's practiced diving on the ball 2 training sessions in a row. This kid turns up the training session, he's not there, and the ball's on the ground next to him. And the other 9 kids all yell out, dive on it, in unison. That was classic, yeah.
Sorry, you're right.
That's what I learned. But that were the sort of things you learned, like back in the early 70s when I was playing, is the basics. Learn how to tackle properly, learn how to catch and pass, and learn, dive on the ball, learn how to play the ball properly. I look at some of the basic skills now, and you just cringe. Terrible.
And even now with some NRL players, it's like they've never dropped the ball in their life, and they drop it, and they look up in the sky, and all the rest of it, and then the other teams half the time dive on the ball. Like I was taught the same thing, so I guess you're right. It's one of those basics of the game where, yes, you've lost the ball, but you're the first one then to get back on it and kill it. And even in the NRL now, it's like they've never dropped it before, and it's the end of the world.
Yeah, and one of the things that annoys me in the game now is, you drop the ball, I pick it up, I start to run with it, and the referee calls a scrum. Like, what about play on?
Yeah. What do you think of the new stuff? It is quicker, isn't it?
Oh, it's a lot quicker, and I think it's some teams have worked it out a lot better. It's interesting though. Like someone like Damien Cook still hasn't worked it out yet, or is it? I don't know whether that's because his forwards aren't providing him the platform to. But you would have thought he'd be one of the guys who'd be sort of reveling in it, but it appears not to be. And then the Roosters, they're a machine.
They could play if Peter V'landys tomorrow said the rest of the comp is to be played in Antarctica for the rest of the season. They would be the first team down there tomorrow. Down there and training with the Eskimos. I don't know if you can call them that now. I think they're called Inuits, but they'd be down there before everyone else, and they'd already be acclimatized to it before everyone. They're amazing.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. They lost the first 2 games before the lockdown, and then since then they haven't missed a beat. They lose Victor Radley and Verrills last week. Then they still the Dragons tried hard, but I didn't think they were ever going to win. They got a lot closer than I thought they would, though.
Speaking of the Chooks, and now please correct me if I'm wrong, because I usually am wrong. I've got here 3 question marks. Graded by East 83. So did you get graded, or was this a trip down to Sydney and you played some footy with Bondi?
No. Came down a trial, played a second grade trial, sat on the bench for first grade after a couple of weeks, and then they cut me because they used to have that import rule, the 13 import rule.
Yep.
And they kept the one spot open, so I played President's Cup. We got beaten in the final by Souths. The kid took an intercept with about 10 minutes to go, and I never heard the end of it. I heard it the next 10 years every nightclub I went to. that was about the only thing this kid ever did. The and then they were going to grade me, and John Quayle talked Laurie Fryer out of it. So I went and played for Bondi United in the B grade. We won that, and then I got graded the next year.
It's funny because in episode 13, I spoke to a bloke called Matt Elliott, who I'm sure you're very...
I know, Matty, yeah.
Yeah, and he's got a similar story where he came down to Sydney, played at Bondi, I think, was playing some cricket as well. Was that around the same time, or was he a little bit later?
He's a little bit later than me.
Yeah.
I think he's a year or two younger than me.
Okay. So you're down here in Sydney, and what I've learned from these episodes, Paul, is particularly with all due respect, the fellas that played, say, 80s onward, is that I've always brought up your first game off the bench, and most replies is, well, I didn't really remember it because I'd already played 50, 60 minutes of Reggie's, and then you sit on the bench for a little while. You don't know if you're going to get on. So do you remember your bench debut against Manly, or was it more about round 3 a few weeks later against Penrith at the old Penrith Park?
Well, in the good old days, I always remembered the Penrith one, but then when they changed the rules around and it counted,
yeah,
I was picked to play third grade I'd played in the first grade trials all the way through. Picked in third grade. That got washed out because it was at the cricket ground. So I sat in the bench for reserve grade, played the second half of that because you had to play at least half a game. Because Ron Jones told me the day before that I was going to get on. Got on with 2 minutes and 4 seconds to go. We were leading Manly 24-12, and I had to tackle Noel Clearler and Chris Close. That was the end of the game. They all got to go out because they'd won the game, and I had to go and play third grade the next day.
Lovely. So did you?
And then we played, and that was in 1984 when they played. The first 5 rounds were played over 3 weeks. So they played weekend, Wednesday, weekend. So I played Thursday. I played reserve grade on the Thursday night against Canterbury. We won third grade and reserve grade 16-6 and lost first grade 16-6. And then I was picked to play first grade against Penrith on the Sunday.
Jesus.
And that was the same day Brandy debuted. He was a bit younger than me.
Yep.
And we lost. A bloke called Les White, big front rower. He had a blinder. I got a cork thigh. Missed the Thursday game. And I played reserve grade for about 5 or 6 weeks. And I used to work. I was going to uni, and I used to work at the Leagues Club Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights. And Laurie Fryer grabbed me one Monday and said, "Look, I'm thinking of playing you in first grade in the next couple of weeks. I want you to tell me when you think you're ready." So the next week we were playing Parramatta, who are the reigning premiers. And the week after that we were playing St George, Graham Wynn, Robert Stone, Craig Young. And I'm thinking, okay, and the week after that we play Illawarra. I'll tell him in 2 weeks that I'm ready to play first grade.
Did he fall for it?
I walked into the sports ground the next night and I was in first grade and we played Parramatta at the cricket ground. We lost 8-4 and I was on the front page of the Telegraph the next day.
You beauty. How was that, though, back in the day? Just to put this in perspective for people out there. Now, you just mentioned that you weren't only just playing footy. You were working at the Leagues Club. You were studying as well. How much did your body ache? Like, how hard was it to get up? Or was it just that was the norm, so that was just what you were used to?
Oh, it was what you were used to, but, like, I was 20 then, so your body didn't ache. You went out and got on the piss on the Sunday night. Give yourself a touch-up. But then you sort of had to do something the next day, like you had to go to work or you had to go to uni or whatever. So you weren't out till 4 or 5 in the morning. You'd probably finish up 10 or 11, you go home and you wake up. And drugs weren't that prevalent back then. So you just drank beer or you drink 6 or 7 beers and have a few bourbons and go home. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also, I guess for players today, I guess it's a different world, but I guess they don't understand. And I think this is, I can't remember which player it was from a previous episode, but they said something very, very similar, is that because it wasn't full-time, like you had a second job, you had priorities the next day, you couldn't get hammered and stay out and get in trouble at the casino at 7 or 8 in the morning. It just wasn't possible. So I guess it kept your head on a swivel a little bit better than players have today.
Except if you played a Saturday game.
Yeah, then you got
Because,
Sunday.
you
Yeah.
know, ABC, they'd have the 3 o'clock Saturday game because then you didn't have to get up the next morning. You'd go hard. Yeah.
So we're talking about 84 here. So you basically you jump straight into this east side. Round 8, you're back on the bench, and then round 10, starting prop in round 10, I think it was. You play 11 more games in the front row, all starting, and East finished second last in your first year of first grade. At the back end of that season, what was it? Was it guess you were just taking your opportunities in front of you, or did you understand that you were in a side that was battling and this is the side
Oh,
that
yeah.
gave you
You
your
think,
chance? What was your mindset then? Was there,
well, at the
was the
start of
grass
the
greener on the
year,
other side?
no, at the start of the year, my goal was to play first grade. So to end up playing 13 games and as shit as a team as it was, it was still I got to play first grade and it's not like it is now. Like I looked in a program a while ago. We played West at Lidcombe. We beat them. I don't know how. Like we were just a really young team because Laurie Fry had Kevin Hastings, John Tobin, Gavin Miller. All these blokes were playing reserve grade or third grade because he just didn't like the old blokes.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, for whatever reason. So we just had a team of young blokes, very little experience. And back then, you know, you're training Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday morning, so skill work wasn't that great. We just got through as best we could, and yeah.
So,
But I got blooded in first grade, and then we played the next year under Beatso, and we just missed out on the semis. So you know, it was a good experience.
that's what I was about to say. 85, bang! You played 25 games, all starting. You guys improved to 7th, which is a mighty improvement on the previous year. What was you hear so many stories about Artie Beetson, the character, the legend. But he had a certain way he'd like to play. But did he take the props and the forwards under his wing a little bit more? What was it like playing under Arthur Beetson, the immortal?
No, Beatso obviously was a great player, but I don't know about. He was good at getting the players together and that sort of thing. But as far as teaching you stuff,
Yeah.
not a lot. I remember Thursday night at ball work, it'd be okay. We've got a new move tonight, guys. We're going to start with the halfback, the 5'8", the centre, and he'd be slapping his one hand into the other. And then the centre's going to come through here and go whoosh. And that was him explaining the tap move.
Yeah.
It was fairly... You look at the way they play now and everyone's structured to within an inch of their life and they know what's going to happen. But then you've got all the videos saying, know who's going to step left, right, and every other way. Back then, it was really still fairly agricultural.
Were you conscious of that at that point, looking at teams like Parramatta with Gibson and Massey and Canterbury with Warren Ryan? Were you conscious of that at training and playing with the Roosters at the time, that there's some other teams that are doing a bit more, or just it was all about just getting through and playing for the Chooks?
No idea.
Yeah.
I was just happy I was playing first grade and, and I played City first that year. And scored my first try the next day against Parramatta because you played City first and then back up the next day and played club footy.
That's crazy.
That was fun.
That's
that
crazy.
was fucking mad. It was mental. But I scored a try.
Beauty.
But then the next year when I did go to Canterbury, you learnt so much about where to run, how to run, little short passing and all those sort of things. I learnt more in that first year at Canterbury than I had, I reckon, 10 years before that.
How did that come about? So how did that process start? Was it a phone call? Was it someone approached you at a rep game, or someone came in and had a beer with you? How did that process start from getting from Bondi across to Belmore?
I had a manager, Richard Fisk, who ended up working at the Roosters and the track. And we basically went through the 12 clubs that were playing at the time and went, okay, they're the 7 I'd be interested in talking to, because I was fairly popular at the end of 1985.
Yep.
And I think we spoke to Penrith. Cronulla just weren't in the ballpark with money because Jack didn't like paying people. And we talked to Canterbury, obviously. Manly wasn't real interested in playing under Bozo.
Why was that?
I just wasn't a fan.
Okay.
And he didn't have a good track record winning grand finals either.
Mm.
But the thing that probably got me to Canterbury more than anything was there was more chance of playing rep footy there.
Yep.
And more chance. My goal was to play in a grand final and ideally go on a Kangaroo tour the next year, which I did both. So didn't win the grand final, but we played in it. And I learned a lot, and best club I ever played at, and still got plenty of good friends from there. So yeah.
And I guess I'd like to. I haven't asked this of any of the players that have been on so far, but I've just got a note here about 86. I've just got Bulldogs pack: Tunks, Gillespie, Langmack, Robinson, Kelly, Folkes, Bugden. What can you explain? I guess pre-season now or off-season for players that transition. Everyone's buddy now, or before they get to the next club, they all kind of know each other if they're playing for Tonga or New South Wales, and everyone's got social media, so they're all mates before they get to the next club. But could you explain to our listeners what it was like on your first day? Was there some beers before the first training session? What was it like going to a new club in 1986 at Canterbury?
No, you would have got a message on the phone or a letter or something telling you when training started. You rock up. I think the first training session was at a park opposite Canterbury Racecourse, and we're doing sprints or something in November. Walked in, and Warren Ryan, the first thing he said was, "You're going to love grand final day." I'm thinking in November. That's an interesting thing to say, given that I'd never thought about it before, really. And everyone was very welcoming. I knew Tunksy I'd trained with him at South Police Boys with our trainer from the East President's Cup. So I knew him. I knew a few of the others from going out at night, that sort of thing, after games, and getting bashed by him. Because I think we had a draw with him at Easter 1985. I got man of the match. So yeah, I knew most of them. And you knew most of them, and it wasn't. Yeah, you weren't buddy like they are now. Like most of the kids now grow up playing footy, junior reps, and all that together, and
yeah. We've all got the same bloody player managers.
Yeah. That's part of it as well.
Yeah.
That wasn't back then. But and then when I first went there, my girlfriend, or my now wife, she was on exchange to America for uni. So I spent a lot of time with Langmack and Cement and the young blokes, and it was really good.
So interesting comment that you just brought up about Wok, where he's kind of come up to you and he's kind of said to you, "You're going to love grand final day." Was that something about Warren Ryan? Was there something about playing under Warren Ryan, or was it about the Bulldogs club to play for?
Oh, I think it was. It's probably a bit of both. But like end of 1985, to be honest, Bullfrog was trying to get rid of him, and they won the comp because they didn't announce my signing until after the grand final, and I'd signed at the end of August because he was waiting until they weren't playing anymore. Didn't want to upset the team, and as it turned out, they ended up winning the grand final. So there was always that animosity between Wok and Gus, and 86 we made the grand final, so they couldn't sack him then, and in 87 we didn't make the semis, just missed out at the end, and they got rid of him.
That's interesting, isn't it? Was that just two different personalities going at it? I mean, Warren Ryan, from what I've heard from previous episodes, and for example, Steve Jackson spoke about his time with Warren Ryan a little bit later at the Magpies, and he said he a little bit like Wayne Bennett, where he was confrontational, and there was disputes and all the rest of it. But what was it about Warren Ryan versus Bullfrog? Was that just control? Was that just what it was about?
Oh, a bit of it, and I think it's about the family thing. The plan was always to get Chris Anderson to coach there. And then, like the first year they were there, 1984, first year Wok was there, he dropped Chris from the first grade team. That didn't go down too well. And then it was just always that. And like the funny thing about Watt, because he was a school teacher, you learned a lot the first year. The second year was much of a muchness. And I think that's a lot of school teachers are like that. You learn a lot the first year, and then after that, it's
Yeah. Okay. So when you got to Belmore, how quickly was it a conscious thing within the players and the club that the Parramatta rivalry, Canterbury Parramatta, was everything in the 80s? Was it spoken about in the club, like you had to beat Para? It was all about Parramatta, or was it just about?
Oh, it wasn't that you spoke about it, but when you played them, you wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in 1986, we beat him the first game at Parramatta Stadium. We were the first team to beat him there because that was when it opened.
Mm-hmm.
And then we played him 4 more times and didn't win any of them. So they beat us in the midweek cup, they beat us in the second round, they beat us in the major semi, and then they unfortunately beat us in the grand final 4-2.
Yeah, that's right. And I was going to mention too, so like 86 finals, you're beaten by Para 28-6 in the major semi. You come back and you give it to Balmain to qualify to play Parramatta again. I asked this question of another player, but there's nothing in your mindset before a grand final that you can't beat the other team. But was there more momentum with Parramatta in 86 than Canterbury, or was it just flip of the coin in the grand final? Because it really did come down to that, didn't it? It was 4-2.
Yeah, and we had Phil Sigsworth sent off with 12
That's
minutes
right.
to go.
Yep.
Shouldn't have been sent off. I've told Mick Stone that every time I've seen him ever since. And like we were all over him in the second half, so Siggy stays on. Like I got that year, and I think 1985 they did as well. They stopped the clock with 5 minutes to go, so he didn't know how long there was to go in the game.
Yeah.
And Mark Bug, I got tackled about 3 or 4 metres out from the line. Second, as it turned out, second last tackle of the game. Buggo went to the right from dummy half, trying to emulate his 1984 heroics.
Yeah. And
that
was it, wasn't it?
There were about 10 of them now, and they stopped him quite easily. All he had to do was pass it to the left. We had a 29-man overlap. We were going to win. But to be honest, Brett Kenny probably had a fair try disallowed at one point. So, yeah.
So after that, though, 86, you said one of the things you wanted to do was make a Kangaroo tour. 86, you've got 4 other Bulldogs teammates with you, more than any other club. So 5 Bulldogs go. You play 11 games on the tour. The first one, though, and I guess, am I right in saying that the PNG was the first stop in the Kangaroo tour, or was that a new thing?
No, I think it played a test because back then the way the World Cup worked was...
That's right, yeah, it was rotating. It went through the year and that, didn't it?
It went over a 4-year period. So basically the last test of every series counted as a World Cup game. So we had to play that, and then we played them again in 88 in Wagga. And they were the 2 World Cup games against Scotland. I managed to play in both of those somehow. I missed a lot of other games in between, but played in those 2.
Yeah, you play game. So I think for you, and
so that didn't actually count as a tour game.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
It counted as a test match, so I get that.
All right. So Blocker dislocates his elbow, and you're into the Kangaroos side for the second and third test versus Great Britain. What was like playing not only just at Ellen Road, but I guess for fans in Australia that kind of understand Wigan and the Warriors, and they play, I don't know what it's called now, JJB Stadium or whatever it's called. Before that, they played at Central Park at Wigan. What was it like being an Aussie? You'd only played first grade for a couple of years, and all of a sudden you're playing for Australia at Ellen Road in Leeds, and then Central Park against Great Britain. What were those experiences like?
The Ellen Road one was just being in the squad and being on the trip. That was amazing. And with blokes like Sterlo, Wally, Gene Miles, Brett Kenny, Blocker, Greg Dowling. It was just like it was amazing. And to run out in the test match and play, like the first time I got the ball, I got whacked in the head. So I hit it up.
Oh. All right, so we've got a little bit of a technical difficulty there, but Paul, you're just telling us about the second test. You just got whacked in the head at Ellen Road.
Yeah, so hit it up off the tap and got whacked in the head again.
2 in a row.
Yeah, but that was the way footy was played back then. It was sort of you just knew to cover up. So they didn't actually get me. They probably got my elbows or something.
The Poms were
and
dirty
then
though, weren't they? They were real dirty.
yeah, but we were hitting them in the head too. It wasn't like it was.
Yeah,
It wasn't all one-sided. And it was quite close till just before half-time. I think Michael O'Connor scored a runaway try, and then we scored another one. And in the second half, we just lapped them. But it was pretty tight for the first 30 minutes, I suppose. And then generally our fitness would just get on top of them. And like the skill level in their backline. So it was Sterling, Lewis, Kenny, Miles, and on the wings you had, for that game, because Les Kiss had done his knee by then, I think, the two wingers are Michael O'Connor and Dale Shearer, and Gary Jack was the fullback.
It's not a bad fucking side.
It's a fair backline, yeah. And it's funny because someone taped it for me about 6 months ago, and I watched it fast forward on all bits. And at the end of the game, Rex Mossop goes, that's as good as a debut as you'd expect, except for that drop ball just after half time.
What do they call them? What were they called? A Mossopism? What were they called back in the day?
Oh, no. When he used to do tautology, it'd be yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Double up on the words, yeah.
But so when you came out to Australia after that, you would have felt invincible. I asked.
That was the problem. I came back and we probably put on, because we didn't train that much over there, to be honest. And came back, I was overweight. Started the first few games, got dropped, played about 5 games in reserve grade. And it was funny because Gus was coaching reserve grade that year. And we'd played Souths, and I got dropped after the Souths game. And we're sitting in the dressing room with all the reserve graders. And, there's blokes like David Boyd and a few other guys that ended up playing first. Oh, Michael Hagan was in the team, Jason Alchin. And he's going around the room saying, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What are you thinking about this? He got to me and he said, well, don't worry about you. You shouldn't be here.
Well, that was nice.
So I played about 5 games, got back into first grade, playing against Balmain was going really good. Then I tore my medial in my right knee, missed another 5 weeks, came back, played a reserve grade game against South Sydney. Joe Thomas, who's a very good friend of mine, captain their reserve grade team. I scored the winning try to beat them. And then I'd get picked in reserve grade every week and play first grade for the rest of the year. So I ended up playing too many games, or not enough games in reserve grade to qualify for the semis. And then in first grade, we lost to St George on the death and just missed out on the semis, but we didn't deserve to be there. It was a pretty tumultuous year. That stuff I was talking about before with Bullfrog and Wok, that was permeating its way through the club quite a lot. You're not winning. It's a bit like the Bulldogs at the moment. So everyone's looking to point the finger at other people, and yeah.
Well, it's funny. The next point I've got, mate, here is 88. Gus is in, walks out. Did you have any allegiances there, or did you just want to play football? And how frustrating was it? You've had your own issues. Were you pissed off that there was other things going on at the club, and you just wanted to get on and play some footy and win some games?
Yes and no, but I think now you probably they would have had someone. I remember I sat down with Wok because there was this bloke I used to do some mentoring or sort of stuff with, and he said, "Well, go and talk to him." So sat down with my fountain pen and the Wok, and he wrote 5 things down. He said, "This is what you got to. This is what you're not doing. This is what you need to do." And I used to read that sheet every week before every game. I did all the way through 1998, and after we won the comp, I went into the dressing room. I showed him. I'm still reading his stuff.
So into the Balmain sheds.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
The allegiance was to Gus because I think Gus is a much better communicator than Wok. I think they're both very wise men about the game of rugby league.
They're both legends, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but just the capacity to think about the game and look at it and all that sort of stuff. I think Gus had the ability to communicate, so he could talk to the wingers talk, and he could talk to front rowers in the way they needed to be spoken to. Whereas Wok, it was one size fits all, and if you didn't understand it, bad luck. So yeah.
Did it make you? Okay, so this is going to sound weird, maybe. So you win the Clive Churchill Medal in the 1988 Grand Final, which is amazing. And for other people out there, the front rowers usually, well, I say this every time, and I'm sure everyone else would agree, that the front rowers lay the foundation for games, but usually in a grand final, the front rower doesn't get the man of the match in a grand final. Off the top of my head, I think Brent Kite got one for Manly.
Willie Mason got one.
Yeah. And you know what? Fafita should have got one for the Sharks, but I think he was on the nose.
I think he upset too many people.
Yeah, he was on the nose.
He should have got that in. He was immoral doing that.
Absolutely. So when you got awarded the Clive Churchill, was it obviously you've won a premiership with the Dogs? You've done it for Gus. Gus is a great coach, but you've also mentioned that you've done it in front of the losing coach, who was also, I guess, a mentor in Warren Ryan. Is that one of the greatest days of your career? Obviously it is, but in yourself, can you compare that to other days? And would that rank one to win man of the match for Gus, for the Dogs, against Warren Ryan?
No, I don't know that I won it for Gus.
No, sorry.
No.
You know what I mean?
No,
though?
I know what you mean. Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely was. It was but it was like from 2 weeks before that, because I crashed my car on the Tuesday night after the major semi-final, rolled it in the middle of Cleveland Street at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I left it with a tow truck driver, caught a cab, went to training, and then...
so Cleveland Street, that's down near Central Station,
Surrey
right?
Hills, yeah. I was driving to training, and this lady's clipped the back of my car, and I rolled about 3 times up the hill.
Fuck.
So, mate, we were never going to lose that grand final. We were always going to win it.
Yeah.
And but that year, Gus used to say to me before every game, he said, I want you to do X, Y, Z. So we played South at the football stadium because it opened that year. First time we get the ball, I want you to run straight at Les Davidson. I'm thinking, fuck, thanks for that. I did it, and it didn't hurt too much.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And the first time he gets the ball, I want you to whack in. But in the grand final, he said, I want you to win the game, score a try, and get man of the match. And I didn't score the try. And after the game, I said 2 out of 3 is not bad. Yeah.
But he would have thought that if you're striving to get all 3, if you do get 2 out of 3, you guys probably win the grand final, right?
Well, one of them was to win the game, so yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go.
It was pretty hard. Because there's only been 2 losing winners, I think, of the medal. Or 3. 3, sorry.
Yeah, I think Brad Mackay and...
Brad Mackay, Bradley Clyde, and Daly Cherry Evans in 2013.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to know who all the other winners are?
No, I've got no idea. Do you know them?
I can tell you from when they started it, probably in 86, yeah.
Oh, go on then.
Sterling, Lyons, me, Clyde, Stewart, Clyde, Alfie, Brad Mackay. Brad Mackay got it in 92. Alfie got it in 93.
Yep.
Or the other, one of those 2 years. David Furner, Jimmy Dimmick, Manley.
That's a tough one.
That was Jeff Tooby, Robbie O'Davis.
98.
Gordon Tallis. It should have been Tony Carroll.
Yeah, he was a freak that day.
99 was Noddy. 2000. Actually, it was Actually, I don't know 2000. Darren Lockyer. Darren Lockyer. 2001 was Joey.
Who should have won in 2001?
Joey.
Oh, Steve Simpson.
No. I would have said
enough.
Ben Kennedy.
Either way,
Joey.
Yeah. Peyton was good too.
2002 was Craig Fitzgibbon. It should have been Freddie. 2003 was the hooker for Penrith.
Prittis.
Luke Prittis. 2004 was Willie. 2005 was...
That was West. I should know that.
Halfback for the Tigers.
Scotty
Prince. 2006 was a Bronco. I think it was...
white jersey. They wore white jerseys.
Yeah, but hooker...
Berrigan,
yeah, Sean Berrigan. 2007 was a Melbourne player, was Greg Inglis.
Yep.
Or did he get 2009?
Oh, it's one or the other. We'll keep going.
Oh, no, because Billy got 2009. 2008 was
We just spoke about him. We
Manly.
just spoke about him. The prop.
Did we? Oh, yeah, Brent Kite.
Yep.
How do you win man of the match when your team wins 40-0? I don't get that.
Oh.
Like, 40-0, front rowers aren't in the game. 2009 was Billy Slater. 2010 was Darius Boyd. 2011 was Manly.
Warriors?
No, yeah, but Manly won it.
Maybe Kite was 11.
No, he won.
Yeah, he was 8.
Yeah, he was 8.
Was it Cherry again? Has he
No,
won
no.
2? No.
I had one too. Bradley Clyde's the only one who's won 2.
Was it Matt Ballon?
Well,
Nah, couldn't have been Ballon.
no, he didn't win. I don't know 11. Okay, so 12 was Cooper Cronk. 13 was Daly Cherry Evans. 14 was Sam Burgess. 15 was Cowboys player.
Thurston.
Yeah. 16 was Luke Lewis. Should have been Fafita. 17 was Billy Slater won his second.
Yeah, and he shouldn't have won that either. Yeah.
No, it should have gone to Cooper Cronk.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, should have gone to Cameron Smith, I think. And 18 was Luke Keary. 19 was Jack Whiten. Actually, there's four losing players.
You're a freak. Yeah. How do you know that?
You want to know who won every comp from 51?
No, don't do that. Don't do that. No, I thought
I was
a nerd.
South, Newtown, South, St George went 11, South, Balmain, South, Manly, Roosters, Manly, St George, Canterbury, Parramatta went 3, Canterbury went 2, Parramatta, Manly, Canberra win 2. Anyway,
you're a genius.
No, it's all about this. It's all about the routine, mate.
No,
the system.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it is, but mate, next time I go to
from
trivia, can I take you with me?
From 1951 to 1971, 4 teams won the comp.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But still, you're a freak. Next time I go to trivia, I'm taking you with me. All right.
Well, one of the best trivia questions of all time is who's the best player to play for East Canterbury, Penrith, and Parramatta, and why was I?
If I had time to Google it, I'd probably find some bum that played one game for everyone. But I don't have time.
I know a lot of people who played for 3 of them, but I think I'm the only one who's played for all 4.
All right. Well, I'll try to find it for you and I'll send it to you. All right.
That was like in Rugby League Week. Brett Finch played 50 games for 4 clubs, and first player to ever do it. And I thought, fuck, I must be close to that. I was 4th on the list. I played 50 at 3 clubs.
Well, here's the next one for you, and I've spoken about this with I can't remember what episode it was, but Pat Jarvis, who I guess
played with us
but
actually he moved us into the unit I live in now.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still working. He's a madman.
Yeah.
But I was going to mention him in '87, but we moved on too quickly. But something we did speak about was his. Well, I'm not even going to say his involvement. He started this. Your first State of Origin in 1988, Game 2 at Lang Park with the 4X can shower, and. Look, he said that he had a bit of a scrap with Greg Kinescu. I watched that back. He dropped about, I don't know if you're into professional wrestling at all, but he dropped about 14 of the best people's elbows from the Rock you've ever seen into Kinescu's face. Then all the shit started, and then Wally Lewis got binned by Mick Stone, which I'm sure you probably tapped him on the back for that one and say thank you while you're giving him shit about the other call, which you spoke about earlier. What were you that was your first Origin at Lang Park, 40,000 mad Queenslanders. What's your memory of that game?
Well, Desi and I were the 2 reserves, and we're sitting in the dugout on the western side of the ground. And
on the other side, right?
They're throwing cans on the field. I'm going, thank God I'm a reserve. But when I got picked, I remember the Sunday night, Bullfrog comes up to me in the China and says, "Oh, you're in the Origin team. You're a reserve."
Mm.
I said, "Who are the starting props?" And he told me, and then I had an argument with him. I didn't play in the 3rd game.
Funny,
don't argue with Bullfrog. Yeah.
But that's what that Paddy Jarvis said too. That I don't know if you remember, but he famously got punted from the Origin team because they said no one can go out. But he went to apparently see his pregnant wife in hospital or whatever, and he got back and Bullfrog sacked him and brought someone else in.
Oh, mate, it's a bit like that.
All right, so we'll move on. So 89, the Dogs missed the finals.
You missed the World Cup final.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. Let's talk about World Cup. Another championship for Australia. Where did you guys play that game at? Was it an actual final? Did you actually get to play a final? Because we spoke about it before with the 4-year cycle. So you guys actually got to play a final, didn't you?
Yeah, we played New Zealand at Eden Park. So for years and years, the Wallabies, because that's a rugby union ground, they always just say the last time Australia won there was 1986. I said, bullshit, we won there in 88. But they didn't like because it was rugby league. But yeah, we played Gary Freeman and Clayton Friend were the two halves for the Kiwis. And they were just gouging and biting and the whole game. Like, we ended up beating 25-8, I think. I got sent to sin bin for 10 minutes just before half time. Stopped someone scoring a try. But, But we'd won the comp at Canterbury and we went to Hawaii for, I think me and Cement and Andrew only went for 7 days because we had to come back and play for Australia. But the rest of them were over there for 10 days. So we'd had a good time in between the grand final and going and playing that game.
Well, that's what you did, right? I mean, like the priority at that time was the World Cup final after that kind of cycle a priority for players that have just won a premiership in Sydney? Like, was that really a priority for players?
Oh yeah, mate, the opportunity to play for Australia. That was, to me, that was what it was all about, really.
Yeah.
Oh, winning premierships is really good from a club point of view and that sort of thing, but from a personal point of view, representing your country, to me, that's still a pinnacle. And I know people say Origin's better and all that, but mate, not everyone gets to play for Australia.
So you spoke about how Bullfrog and the Canterbury Club, there was some inner fighting and politics being played out to get Warren Ryan out of the club. And all of a sudden, they've got Phil Gould, and after 2 years, he's gone to Penrith. What happened there? Like, was he supposed to do as good as he did, or was it again waiting for Chris Anderson to come through? Because he was only there 2 years. 1 year's a comp in his first year. 30 years old, won Canterbury comp as a coach, and all of a sudden he's off to Penrith. What happened then?
I think the plan was to stick him in for a year, and Chris Anderson would come back and we'll whack him in, and then mate, we had a pretty good team, like Andrew Farrar, Tony Curry, Terry Lamb, Turvey, Michael Hagan, Tunksy, Folksy, Cement, Langmack, Joey Thomas. You go through. I've said this for a long time now. To win the comp, you need 8 or 9 Origin or better players, Origin or international players, and we had that in that team. And Gus, we just said, I remember the last 3 round games, they were all on a Friday night. I think I got home 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
We just had a great time as a team and all that sort of thing. And then in that off season, Bullfrog let 17 players go who'd played first grade the year before.
Wow.
And so 89 was a struggle, didn't have the depth, few injuries. Bullfrog was the manager for the Australian team that went to New Zealand in the middle of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Gus had worked on Barry Nelson, the president, to get rid of Bullfrog, and he had him ready to go. And then we played a game in Perth. I didn't get to go because I'd cracked my cheekbone, but Bullfrog did what he normally did, went over 3 or 4 days early because you got to get ready and play golf and all that sort of shit. And he talked Punchy out of it, so then Gus had to go.
Incredible, considering obviously Bullfrog's a legend of the club and he's no longer with us. But when you talk about Warren Ryan, he's got you in a comp and he's winning you a premiership. You've won the premiership, and still there's people that want him out of the club. Phil Gould brings you success, wins you a premiership in his first year, and it's still he's being pushed out of the club. Did that in any way make you more inclined to leave and follow Phil to Penrith? And how did that come about?
1990, halfway through the year we were coming second. Then Bar missed the game against the Tigers. We lost that. The next week we played Newcastle. I did my knee, missed the rest of the year. Then Langmack did his knee. Andrew Farrar did his knee. Like I a core of 7 or 8 players, and we're going all right. But as soon as we lost a few of those, and we ended up missing the 5, top 5 as it was then, and that was the year they brought in the draft. So we'd sort of, we were all pissed off that they got rid of Gus. We weren't happy with the way that the club was going. So Andrew Farrell left, Langmack left, Cement left, Joey Thomas left, I left, Jason Alchin left, and there was one other, because there's 7 of us. No, there's 6 of us left, yeah. So, and I was the lucky one I picked to go to Penrith.
Well, I'm glad the rest went to the Magpies because they're my teammate. So I'm glad they did that.
They went good.
They made bloody oath. And Warren Ryan was there, and as a 4 or 5 year old at Campbelltown, we hadn't much to support. And then all of a sudden we've got these Canterbury players and Warren Ryan and Jason Taylor comes along, and you beauty, we're going to win a premiership. Never came about, but no, it's good times. Good times for the Magpies anyway for a few years. But I want to talk about your transition to the Panthers. Now,
you remember when you asked before about the first 8 Canterbury?
Yes.
Okay, so first 8 Penrith, Paul Clark, who's a grub, and Graham Bradley, who's a bigger grub.
The Penguin and Nobby Clark.
The great Nobby Clark. They decided that, because Nobby said the year before he turned up and they just brushed him because they got rid of Matt Good and brought Nobby in, and so the players just wiped him. So Nobby said, when Dunny comes in, just ignore him. So I'm walking around saying, g'day, mate, g'day, because I knew them all. And they're just all ignoring me.
That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
How long did that go on for?
Oh, half an hour. Once we got out training, it was all right. But, yeah, that's the great Paul Clark for you.
Did you move out to the roof as well? Did you live locally when you played for him?
No, my wife's from the eastern suburbs, mate. The furthest west I got to was Canada Bay.
Well, that's where all the greater Western Sydney Giants all live now, apparently. So that's
Canada Bay.
Yeah, that's as far west as they go, apparently, as well. So
yeah, like, do you want to live at the Rift? No offence to any listeners from the Rift, but my wife actually spells it Panraff. Penrith. Come on, Penrith.
Well, let's actually talk about you personally at Penrith as a player, and I want to ask you personally: Did you at some point in your time, once you made the Australian side, realise that you were not just one of the great props at Canterbury or one of the leaders in a really, really good side, but did you realise your responsibility went up at Penrith, or was it just a bit of same, get on with your own job?
No, because Gus used to use me as an example all year. He had this thing, because they lost the year before against Canberra, and he kept using me as an example because I was the only player in the squad, I think, that had won a comp at that point. And so he kept using me as an example. And I was a good trainer, so unfortunately he used to do that. And then he had this... he used this analogy the whole way. Every game that we won, it was like we were on a trip down the M4 to the football stadium. Every game we won it was closer to getting to the football stadium for the finals. And, yeah, he used me up a bit.
Well, it's not such a bad thing, because I guess that makes you not only puts you on a pedestal, but it gives you no other option but to actually perform as well.
That by that stage, that was what my 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1. That was my 8th year in first grade. It was like you knew what you needed to do, and you did it. I missed 6 games that year, I think. I missed 3 games with rib cartilage. We played Brisbane up in Broken Hill for the pre-season competition final, and I popped my rib cartilage, so I missed the first 3 games. Then on Easter Sunday, he said, I want you to sit on the bench. So I got noodled up. I sat on the bench and didn't play, and I called him everything under the sun after the game because I hated noodles. And I hurt my hand, and I missed 1 game, I think. They did lose that game to Cronulla, so it was obvious why they lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would you say, with this Penrith pack that won the comp, now, obviously, every single player individually talented, but when you look at them against other sides through history, with all due respect to the Penrith pack, I still don't think they get the respect they deserve. Maybe because of the names. They weren't all household names, all rep players. But together, and I'm talking about players like Walker and like Cole Vandervoort. He's a freak of a player, and I think I've
Yeah,
seen.
he should have gone. He should have gone on the 1990 Kangaroo tour.
Yeah, and I think
that was a big travesty.
I think I've seen Gus on Twitter actually say that Cole Vandervoort is the one player he regrets that didn't get to go. I think it was the 90 tour or play for Australia.
Yeah,
but
90. Yeah.
And then you got someone like John Cartwright on the bench as well. I mean, then you look at Canberra.
Well, Carty was on the bench more because he'd been injured on the way up to it.
Yeah, okay.
But it was funny because halfway through the second, or 15 minutes in the second half, I tried to decapitate David Barnhill, missed him, got him the second time, got penalised, and then I got hooked about 5 minutes later. And that burned for about 20 years because I hated getting replaced, especially in the grand final.
Yeah.
And I don't think I talked to Gus for about 3 days after. Then I was at a club watching, they replay all the grand finals in grand final week. And I was watching it in the second half. It was just going from end to end, and it wasn't my type of game. So I can understand now why he took me off.
It was when I say loose grand final, like I mean, like it was, like you said, it was one of the most entertaining grand finals you'll ever watch, and you put it up against games from now, and it's still the same way. But individually at the start of the game, was there any different mindset? I guess I know, like you're already a Clive Churchill medal winner. You'd proven yourself at Canterbury as well. Lazarus and Todd, were they the best front row rotation that year for any club, unless you want to talk about Panthers? But Lazarus and Todd together with Steve Walters in the ruck as well. They were a tough front row rotation to stop. Did you guys talk about that before the game, or was it just more about doing your own thing?
Not really. It was about doing our own thing, but it was just understanding their pattern of play. Like, I still remember Gus saying now, if on the third tackle they hadn't reached the 20, they were always going to kick the ball when they were coming out of trouble. But if they got over the 20, then they were going to run it. So it was more understanding that sort of stuff. And, and like we were really fit. The trainer we had that year, Terry Mogg, he was like a martial arts guru of some description. And mentally we were really well prepared, really fit, very skillful side. And, again, you run through that team, there's at least 8 or 9 of the guys played for Australia or played Origin.
Or would, yeah.
Or would, yeah. So it was, and they'd lost the year before, which sort of, that whole year, it was just getting over that, because they had that whole stuff up at the hotel the night before the grand final breakfast where they were playing up, and so they had to come good.
So, did you have 2 knee recos, or was it 3 in your career?
No, only 1 reco, and the other 2 were just medial ligament tears. So you just whack it in a brace for 6 weeks and don't play footy.
Were you shocked how long you went on? Like, 14 more games for Penrith in 92, Para for 3 years, and then you finish up back at the Chooks in 96. Were you, like, obviously, if I was you, and I know you were very sheepish at the start and said, talking about your career, but that's a mighty career, Paul. Were you surprised how long you went, or you were pretty much in control of your body and you knew what your body could do by the end?
I didn't miss that because I found this myotherapy, which is this full body massage. I didn't miss a game the last 3 years I played when I was the oldest. It's just about looking after yourself. And mind you, the last year I played for the Roosters, I started 5 games and I averaged like 70 minutes, and the rest of the year I averaged 40 minutes because it was unlimited interchange. And Parramatta were going to cut me, so Gus said, come play over here. They didn't make the semis, we did, so stuff you, Parramatta.
I like it.
But yeah, it still took me 4 or 5 days to get over a game back then. That last year it was pretty tough.
What are you up to? We're gonna pull it up here, but what are you up to these days, Paul?
I got a share in a marketing agency, and I'm on the board at the Bulldogs Leagues Club and the football club, which is so much fun at the moment.
But you're building something again, aren't you? So.
Oh yeah, but partway through a reconstruction from the mess that we picked up. But yeah,
Well,
people don't want to hear that. They just want you to win games.
That's it, exactly right. And that's just the media cycle we're in, right? So one day we're talking about ash clouds in New Zealand. The next minute we're talking about ISIS. The next minute we're talking about bushfires, and now it's COVID. In 2 months we'll be on to the next thing. So I think people's
No, in 2 months we'll still be talking about COVID.
yeah, well, you know what I mean. They're like people's attention to detail is far less than what it used to be. So I guess what I'm saying there is that fans just want success immediately, and they'll throw anyone under the bus they can to make sure that, you know, next week, you know, if we're not winning, then we'll go on to the next person. So
that's very true.
Paul, we'll leave it there because I did promise you that we're going to talk about your career exclusively. If you'd like.
Well, if I can say one thing before I go,
absolutely.
I read a book about 12 years ago called A Fortunate Life by A.B. Facey. He was this bloke who grew up around. He was born around 1898 or something in country Victoria, moved to country Western Australia, and his life was a shit house. You know, he got blown up in Gallipoli and blah blah blah.
Yep.
Anyway, he wrote this book and he called it A Fortunate Life. And I said at my 50th birthday, if he had a fortunate life, my life's been sensational. And, you know, I've got so much out of rugby league. I'm just one lucky country kid.
That's beautiful, Paul. And not only that, we've got the same birthday. You're a champion of the game. I know you said before, why do you want to talk about your career? Well, mate, I think the proof's in the pudding. You're an absolute champion, 2-time premiership winner, a Kangaroo, a Blue, and on top of everything else, 255 first-grade games, most of them in the front row. And I think the other thing too, Paul, that we didn't speak about is I think that you made other players around you in your packs in your later days better players too. So is that something you ever thought about? Is, you know, your leadership as a player for younger blokes, or was that just something?
Yeah, I always well, you know, I was lucky to learn off some good guys, and I like teaching people shit. And, you know, if I'm going to play with someone, I want them to play to their best because it's going to help me make my job easier. So that's what it really... That was one of the things I learned about Canterbury when you got there. Like, we all train, you put in together, you train hard, you get the results. I went to Parramatta and it took us a while and I don't think the culture was ever there when I was there. It sort of was with some players, but not with most of them. And that was unfortunate. And, you know, that was the thing I got out of Canterbury, mate. You just turned up, everyone trained hard, and if you didn't put in, you'd find your way out the back door really quickly because the other players wouldn't accept it.
Paul, happy birthday for next week, mate. Next month, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you.
All right, I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, Paul.
Bye.